Walt had decided a long time ago that he didn't merely want to build another Disneyland.
But as you can see on this master plan, the theme park and all the other tourist facilities fill just one small area of our enormous Florida project.
Rather, he wanted to push the boundaries of what he had already done, to improve upon his first iteration. This new world would still have a theme park, but it would also have something else. A city. And that's where we left off last time, everyone. It's what we in the business call a tease. It's so you stay interested long enough so that I have enough time to put together the next video.
Many months later.
Which I really appreciate, by the way. Although, if you are ever really worried about missing the next video, then feel free to subscribe so that you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it wasn't just going to be any city. I mean, this is Walt Disney after all. No, quite different actually. Instead, this was going to be a city of the future. In fact, not just any futuristic city. You see, it was actually an experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it Epcot.
Hey everyone, I'm the futuristic Utopian. Epcot, as this futuristic city is most well known as, was, in Walt's mind, going to be a place where people lived full time and corporations would test their latest innovations. You see, this was vastly different from Disneyland, which was seen as a vacation destination. Disney World, on the other hand, while still having a vacation destination in the Magic Kingdom, would be built with a city, so that people could actually live within the boundaries of Disney World. The people who lived in the city would work at its businesses, shop at its stores, play at its recreational facilities, attend its schools, and be in charge of shaping it for years to come. A utopia that would be completely self-sufficient. However, it wouldn't be self-governing. Disney wanted to keep complete control over not only Disney World, but the progress city of Epcot. So, from the very beginning, he had always planned to have permanent freedom from not only the local government, but the state government of Florida as well. This way, he could be assured that he could run his city in the way that he saw best suited it. Urban planning had long been a fascination of Disney's, ever since the early days of Disneyland. In fact, some have even gone as far as saying that Disneyland is a masterpiece of user experience and urban design. And this fascination ultimately led Disney to believe that something was fundamentally wrong in urban America. And not only that, but he believed that the only way to solve these fundamental problems which he saw that American cities had was to start over, completely from scratch. Which is where the idea of Epcot came from. It would be a city, designed mostly by Walt himself. One that had enough land to grow, enough financing to be free from outside investment, distinction as its own town to be free from external politics, and citizens collectively focused on making their city better each and every day. But the government naturally got involved. The Florida government essentially said that if Walt really wanted to do this, to build this city, then he would first have to build another amusement park to draw tourists and, perhaps even more importantly, money into the state of Florida.
And of course, the theme park area way up here.
The agreement was essentially that if Walt did this, then the government would let him build his city in the way that he wanted, and even help him to ensure that control of it would remain with the Disney company. A really good video to check out if you're interested in the legal jurisdiction of Walt Disney World is Midway to Main Street's video, Disney's Two Cities. I'll provide a link to it down in the description below. Be sure to check that out after this video though. In the meantime, I'll just go ahead and give you a quick synopsis. Essentially, in Florida, there are what's known as special districts, which were established from the Road, Highway, and Ferry Act. They are governing jurisdictions that get established to focus on one district. Once it's set up, a district only has one board to focus on that specific task, whatever task the district was set up for. It was initially developed to try and keep bureaucracy out of important state initiatives. So the idea became that if Disney established a special district for themselves, they could then govern themselves, as they would be the board focused on the specific task of running Disney World. As a special district, Disney could issue its own bonds, establish building codes, maintain their own utilities, build their own roads, and even have the option to use nuclear power or any other method of power that might be developed in the future if they saw fit. Not only that, but Disney could also dictate voting rights, which they did. In a company event dubbed Project Future Seminar, Disney limited voting in the district solely to landowners, so that no one could vote against Disney's interests now or in the future. Naturally, seeing the power of these special districts and the autonomy which they provided the Disney company, Walt decided to go ahead, accept the proposal, and build Magic Kingdom as a tourist destination so that he could also build Epcot. Walt's Progress City took influence from modern cities of his time. There would be recreation areas, housing complexes, business districts, supply routes, access roads, and research parks, among other things. Many of these items weren't unheard of in cities at that time, but Walt was worried about the social implications of cities. He thought that the very nature of how cities were originally built left them unable to be altered in any meaningful way. That once a city was built, it was essentially static and unchanging. You couldn't go back in and rearrange what you wanted to. Regardless of politics, what Walt dreamed of was a city that could continually experiment, react to social pressures, change, and progress as it ran into the inevitably unforeseen needs of the future. And the only way to have a city capable of this, in Walt's mind, was to simply start over and build one from scratch. Walt's Utopia would be radial and circular, like a wheel, with the main business district in the center of the circle, and emanating out from the middle, like spokes on a wheel, would be the shopping district, leisure district, then schools, and ultimately homes around the outside of the wheel, akin to a suburb. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, no, you weren't allowed to buy your home. You see, remember when we talked about voting rights in the city being exclusively for landowners? Yeah, as a result, the Disney company decided that anyone who wanted to live in Epcot would have to lease their homes from the Disney company. That way Disney was the sole landowner and, as a result, the only one with voting rights. Connecting all of these districts or zones were two methods of transportation. A constantly moving, short distance, slow motion people mover to ferry people within zones, which you can actually ride for yourself at Tomorrowland in Disney World right now. That's the one in Florida though, so sorry to everyone who calls Disneyland their home park. And a faster moving monorail system, a subway in the sky, if you will, that transported people to different zones. Underneath the zones were a series of highway and access routes for travelers who didn't live in the city but were merely there for a day, or for commuters whose quickest route to work was through the city instead of around it. The delivery roads and supply routes were for trucking of freight, or any kind of delivery to be performed out of sight and out of mind from the citizens of Epcot. An idea that was ultimately used for the tunnels in Magic Kingdom called the utilidors. Which, fun fact by the way, aren't actually underground. Well, they're underneath the Magic Kingdom, but they were built at ground level, and Magic Kingdom was actually built one story above ground level. There was even an idea to have the business district of the city be covered in a sort of artificial atmosphere, allowing the inside of the city to be completely climate controlled. Like a dome, so it would always be the perfect weather regardless of the time of year. It seems like inspiration for that dome concept was ultimately the inspiration to build the geodesic dome known as Spaceship Earth that's currently at Epcot right now. And speaking of geodesic domes, that's right, shameless plug, Buckminster Fuller popularized the geodesic dome here in America, and he also had an attempt at Utopia, which we discussed right here if you want to learn a little bit more about it. Epcot would operate as a joint operations between Disney and the large enterprises of the time, who would have a very real stake in its success. The hope was that the corporations would invest in the city, build headquarters in it, move their research departments there, and continually innovate. The corporations would then use the citizens of Epcot, its tourists, and Epcot itself as a proving ground for their latest ideas and innovations. Epcot was designed to be a place where the latest innovations could be tested in the real world. And as such, Epcot would always be on the forefront of ingenuity. That it would continually be built and rebuilt as technology improved, much like Walt Disney's original concept for Disneyland. And with the agreement that Walt had made with the Florida government, Epcot would be completely independent from any other societal affiliation. The new city would have its own fire department and utility services. It could also build a police station, although, as you've seen throughout Disney, there is no police force, and became pretty much as close to autonomous as one could get at the time. It was essentially going to be a brand new city in the 1960s. The city, in addition to the funding of corporations who would help build and later occupy it, would receive a large part of its revenue from the Disney World theme park being planned concurrently in the same area. There's a wonderful video detailing all of the plans for Epcot as told by the man who dreamed it up himself, Walt Disney. You can find a link to that down in the description below. Sadly, Walt passed away in 1966 before ground broke for the city. Without the man who had been such a visionary for the last 40 plus years, the Walt Disney Company ultimately decided that it just couldn't do justice to the Epcot that Walt Disney imagined. While it was never built in the form Walt Disney envisioned, I think it's safe to say that the idea of Epcot, the original Epcot, satisfied the criteria for Utopia. And maybe one day we'll get to see it built. And there you go, everyone, a down and dirty history of Epcot, the city itself, not just the amusement park. And my question for you today is, what's your favorite Disney ride? Disneyland, Disney World, Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, doesn't matter to me. What's your favorite Disney ride? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you get notified whenever we post a new video. It really doesn't hurt you whatsoever, and it's completely free. If anything, it just helps out the channel, so we really appreciate it. Also, I know we already shamelessly plugged another video earlier in this episode, but if you're feeling adventurous, feel free to check out another video right here. And as always, just remember that the future is out there.